Hi everyone, welcome to Godel Pods. My name's Mike Hannah. I'm one of the service delivery leads over at Godel. Co-host today is Rihanna, one of our marketing assistants, and we're sat in front of the CEO of the Youth Zone, Adam. Thanks for spending some time with us today.
Well, thanks for inviting me on and thanks for coming down.
No, not a problem. We've got a lot of questions for you today. It's actually my first time visiting the youth centre. Funnily enough, I used to live about 5 minutes up the road, but never actually knew it was here, being totally honest. So coming in today, pretty impressed with the building and what's actually in there from the moment you step in. You've got the climb walls, you've got all these rooms labelled up with the boxing, the music zone. It's pretty remarkable actually what's here, given I think as well the location. You're driving up, there's not much happening. And then you're just faced with this huge youth centre.
That's part of the idea, that these youth zones are always built in prominent positions on the main routes in and out of the city centres. So and then like you said, a lot of people, when you explain what the youth zone is and what we do, until you've actually walked through the door and seen it for yourself, it's you've got to experience it and see it firsthand to really understand what it is that we're doing here. Yeah,
absolutely. So I guess to kick things off then, what was the initial idea? What was the reason you established the youth zone from day one?
So it goes back a lot further than me as an individual, to be honest, and Hideout. So Onside Youth Zones is a charity that was established going back maybe about 10-11 years ago now, and it was the inspiration of a very well-known businessman, Bill Holroyd, and the CEO of Bolton Girls and Lads Club at the time, which was Jerry Glover. So the youth zone model is based on the old Bolton Girls and Lads Club model.
That's still running, isn't it?
It's still going, I think it's something like 150 years old now. It's been going that long.
My dad does quite a bit of mentoring for...
if you've in and around Bolton, everybody knows Bolton Girls and Lads Club, I think Bill Holroyd come on board maybe around 2010. It's probably a little bit earlier than that. As the chair of the charity, Jerry had brought him in. And he was just so inspired by what was going on in the youths, in the Lads Club, Girls and Lads Club at the time, that he said, this is just too good to just have one. We need these initially all around the northwest, and then that's grown now to be all around the UK. So we were the 14th youth zone to open when we opened back in 2020, actually the second one in Manchester. So there's another youth zone in Harper Hay in North Manchester which opened back in 2012. So that's where the initial inspiration of the youth zone model come from. In terms of Hideout Youth Zone and Manchester itself, I was working at the council at the time, Manchester City Council. I was heading up the youth department there, and we were approached by businessman Fred Doan, who was the major capital donor for Hideout Youth Zone. And basically the story goes, he was friends with Dave Whelan and Mr Wigan, who'd been one of the major investors in Wigan Youth Zone.
Yes.
The largest youth zone in the country is in Wigan, in the town centre. And he'd invited Fred after a business meeting to go and see that youth zone. And Fred will tell you he already had excuses in his head why he was going to leave after half an hour, because he wasn't interested. He'd had a long day. Wanted to go to pay respects to David, but when he got there, he was blown away again. As soon as he walked through the door, it just wasn't what he expected it to be. And he spent 3 hours there, 3.5 hours, speaking to young people, speaking to the staff, speaking to the volunteers, and he was just so blown away by what he saw. He come back to Manchester, and a couple of weeks later went and met Sir Howard Bernstein, who was the chief exec of the council at the time, and said what he'd seen, and asked him, how do I make that happen in Manchester? I want to make it happen. Find me a place where the most need is, tell me how much it's going to cost, and we'll make it happen. And then at the time, as I said, I was heading up the youth department, so it trickled down to me. I met Fred, met his representatives. We looked at where the most need was in the city, and got and topped the charts for many different reasons, socio-economic reasons, but also just based on there not being a lot for young people to do in this part of the city. So we identified Gorton, Fred loved it, and that's how it started really. He put £6 million in of his own money. The council put £1.5 million in, and provided the land for free. And then we brought Onside Youth Zones in to help project manage and design the facility, and that's how it begun really.
Wow, that's impressive. Crazy how many people are involved to get it to where it is now.
Yeah, and that was initially, that's just obviously the capital funding and the capital projects. Once the building was developed, well, even before that, we had to secure at least the first 3 to 4 years of revenue funding that was required. So that was where we founded the Founder Patron campaign. That's where that come from. of which Godel was one of the very first companies to come on board, so we're very grateful for that, because it allowed us to make sure that when we opened the doors we knew we had a good run-in for the first few years.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're open 7 days a week, and it costs about 1.5 million a year to run, so it's a big project, it's huge. A big operation, but we're making it happen. We're doing good things so far, so we'll keep that going.
Yeah, I think one of the things you mentioned at the start as well is like the over in Wigan, that, you know, immediately as soon as you walk in, just that feeling and like, whoa, this is bigger than I thought. Yeah, because you do. I think I said it to you when I walked in the building. Like, you think of youth zone, me immediately think like the building next to a church. You know, like just an empty room with a pool hall, a tiny little kitchen, and that's the youth zone. You know, headed up by 1 or 2 volunteers. Like, that's all I ever saw. You know, youth zone as,
it was the same for me. I worked for youth services in Manchester since I was 16 years of age, and I'm from this area. Yeah. So kind of coming back to the inspiration for this project from me on a personal level, I was heading up the youth department at the council, but I knew as soon as this project was a goer, my decision with my heart was always going to throw my hat in to lead this organisation, to lead the charity, because I'm from the area, I know what the need is, but I also knew the impact something like this would have, because as you say, for many, many years, we were either engaging young people on the streets or in old buildings that were falling down, in church halls. And there's nothing wrong with that, because there's still some amazing projects across the city and up and down the country that operate out of those types of facilities. So, you know, that's no disrespect to anyone working in those environments, because sometimes it's more about the youth workers and the staff and the volunteers that are in those environments, not just the facilities. But what we wanted to do here was really show young people that we're investing the best in you because you deserve it, not just because you need it, but you deserve it.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, sounds great. So like, obviously you spoke about like founder patrons, and then like Mike, you mentioned like what facilities you brought and stuff like that. So like, what else does the youth on, like, because we mentioned like you think like, obviously you said just a pool table next to a church, but you've got like cooking classes, like the recording studio and stuff like that. What else does like the youth zone bring to like the children of like Gorton and like just like East Manchester?
So what we're trying to do is provide, there should be anything a young person wants to do when they come into the youth zone, they should be able to do, whether that's sport, whether it's arts, whether it's health and well-being, support around employability, further education, enterprise. We will find a way, and if we haven't got the facilities or the activities within the youth zone to do that, we'll bring in partners who have the skills or the expertise to do so, or we'll go out to them, we'll reach out. It's basically trying to provide a platform for young people to empower them to go on to improve their own life chances. So yeah, the facilities are amazing, as I've said, and we deliver over 20 activities every night, but everything we do, it's more about developing a relationship with a young person. That's what youth work's about. So whether they come and use the gym, whether they come and use the music room and they play the drums and the guitars, whether they use the arts and crafts room and paint, whatever that is, that's the activity and the hook to get them in the youth zone. But what our staff then do is start to build relationships with them, trusting relationships, which hopefully then, once they've built that trust, we can help them in all areas of their life and encourage them to take part in different activities as well. So they might just be young people who are interested in the gym and the fitness side of things, but within 6 months they're on the climbing wall, they're engaging in employability programs, they're in the music room and doing photography and linking that to the gym or the fitness, whatever it is that was initial, what sparked their interest. So.
Of course. Do you have any success stories about any?
Oh God, we've got loads, so many already. We've got young people who have come through the enterprise projects and gone on to secure employment. We've got young people who come in initially and didn't have very much confidence and self-esteem and wouldn't really talk to any other young people. They'd just come in and sit in the main rec area and play the PlayStation, and now they're one particular lad just finished a 12-week AQA boxing programme, and at the end of it they had an open sparring session, so parents and carers come in, and he's now got a massive group of friends. He's thinking much more about nutrition and healthy choices he's making, with not buying sweets and fizzy drinks anymore. And we don't tell the kids you can't do that or you must do this, you must do that. We educate them and allow them to make informed decisions, and that again, that's what's different about youth work to any other profession working with children and young people. We're not teachers, we're not social workers, we're not the mums and dads or carers. We're there to educate them to help them make their own decisions, even if we know sometimes that's the wrong decision, but we'll always be there to help them reflect and learn from those decisions. So many success stories, too many to kind of pinpoint, to be honest.
Very proud, obviously.
Yeah, that's cool. I think again it just links back to what you were saying about if someone coming in just wants to do a bit of boxing or sit in the corner and do gaming because there's an opportunity to, there's a games console there that they might not have the access to at home, but then it's everything that comes with that, you know, the social elements, having the opportunity to actually see someone else cooking. Hang on a minute, I've never cooked before, or I want to learn this, and then the friendships and the relationships that get built off the back of it, and the confidence levels.
Absolutely.
You know, people just don't get the opportunity.
No.
You know, outside of here.
Me, that is a safe place. You know, for some young people, this is just a safe place for them. Sometimes the home environment's not necessarily a safe place for them. Sometimes school or the local community, the estates where they live, they might not feel safe in those environments. And just coming in here for 2-3 hours and gaming on a console in a safe environment, where they know they can speak to somebody. Yeah, exactly. That could be it. But like you say, then hopefully, if our team's doing the job well, after a few weeks, after a few months, they're then participating in a load of different positive activities and helping other young people engage in the youth zone as well. So
yeah, absolutely. I know it's not a question that's on our list here, but have you noticed a difference, like post-COVID? You know, kids coming back in and seeing different levels of like anxiety or social massively. Skills, confidence. Like, have we seen a drop? I would assume there probably is.
We didn't really touch on this at the beginning, but I think if we go back a couple of steps to our journey and our story of how we opened, we actually got the keys. So the practical completion date for the building, in terms of the contractors giving us the keys, was at 12 p.m. on the 23rd of March 2020. Oh, wow. Right. So at 12 p.m. we got the keys, did a little dance in the rec area because we were all excited. At 8 p.m. that night, Boris announced the first lockdown. So the same day we got the keys to the building, we went into a national lockdown. Right. We just recruited about 16 or 17 of our core full-time staff team at that point. None of them were eligible for furlough because they'd all started after the February cut-off point. So it was a mad 24, 48 hours in terms of thinking, what are we going to do here? But ever since that point, we just focused on what we could do rather than what we couldn't do. We adapted, as Godel did, and you've had to continue to do some of the global difficulties, you know, we're all facing, that's affecting your business. You adapt and you're agile and you make sure that you're focusing on things that you can do rather than letting things stop you. And that's because of the types of services we're delivering with the customers we've got in terms of disadvantaged young people. We had to show them that you have to keep moving forward. So it was difficult in that within such a short space of time there was a whole cohort of young people who wouldn't have been on anybody's radar in terms of needs or emotional support or health and well-being issues that quickly moved into that threshold because they were locked up. They wasn't just locked down. A lot of the kids we work with don't have the luxury of having gardens and stuff like that. So
of course,
in lockdown, they were literally in the homes 24 hours a day. Schools were closed. It was a very, very difficult time. Some families were, their work and employment status changed. So there was more pressure in the home environment. Domestic abuse went up. There was a lot going on at the time, I think, that affected disproportionately affected young people, primarily disadvantaged young people and the types of kids that we work with here. So we tried to do as much as we could within the restrictions, the government guidance that we were given. And as restrictions have eased over the last 9-12 months, we've been able to do more and more. So we've been able to bring those young people back in, make sure that they're participating in positive activities, but where there is needs that we can't just meet on our own, we bring in partners, we signpost them, we bring in CAMS, Children's and Adult Mental Health Services, other charities, amazing charities like 42nd Street and Manchester Mind, to provide that emotional support that the young people might need.
Of course, like obviously you touched, obviously not touched on, you've mentioned COVID as like a big challenge. Has there been any other like big challenges for like establishing the youth zone? Obviously getting it started, obviously being in the lockdown, has there any been since that as well?
I think COVID's definitely the biggest challenge we've had. Just in terms of being able to keep momentum and keep consistency in terms of what we're delivering, because at one point we'd be able to deliver in a certain way with a certain number of young people for 3 months, and then that'd completely change and we'd have to deliver in a different way with less young people. So it was the inconsistency of the messaging that we were putting out to children and young people and the parents and carers who might have been bringing young people to the sessions. Like, for example, one thing we would have never implemented was a booking system. So the whole purpose of the youth zone is that it's open access, universal provision, voluntary engagement. Young people can come as and when they please on their own terms, leave at any point. With COVID, we had to pre-book all activities so that we knew exactly what young people were in the building, what sessions they'd attended, so we could track and chase, and et cetera, et cetera. So it changed the whole dynamic of how that relationship initially was developed with young people. It was much more structured and kind of premeditated than necessarily what youth work would normally be. Now, it wasn't a disaster, it just meant it was a different way of initially developing the relationships with the children, the young people and the wider community, but we've got through that now, and we're now in a better place where we're delivering exactly how we would have wanted to deliver from day one. So it could have been worse. Like I said, we focused on what we could do really, and at that time that was what we could do, so that we cracked on.
Had to be done, didn't it?
Yeah,
It's not, it wasn't like it was an option.
No,
a booking
not really.
system and
The
make
other
it more
option was we
structured.
close and we don't open, and that was never an option in our mind. So
fair enough. I guess on the flip side then, other than what we spoke about so far and the achievements today, what is the number one achievement that either yourself or you sort of?
I think just how we've established ourselves in the city of Manchester in such a short space of time, given that we opened in the peak of the pandemic. So we officially opened to the public in September 2020, which was when it was literally we were at the peak of the pandemic. So, and I think that whole range of issues that caused in terms of being able to get patrons in, get supporters in, bring community members in, there was so much we could have done to raise the profile of the youth zone in that first year that we just couldn't do. But we've still managed to now, we've managed to secure over 4,500 members. We've got 4,600 members from across Manchester, not just from East or Central East Manchester, right from across the city. We're engaging over 1,000 young people a week, and on average we're getting about 150 young people in every night. We're open 7 days a week, all year round. So despite the pandemic and despite the issues we've faced, the only 2 days we've actually closed to young people over the last 2 years was Christmas Day 2020 and Christmas Day 2021. We've been open every other day, every bank holiday, every celebration, every festival, because we recognise sometimes that they're the times when young people need us the most.
100%.
Life's not great all of the time for all young people, and sometimes what's a great time of year for some of us is the worst time of the year for some of the children and young people we support. So I'd say that they're some of the snapshots of the biggest achievements, but then also just as an organisation and an employer as well. So in November 2021 become a registered real living wage employer. So from April this year everybody's now paid a real living wage within the youth zone. We've implemented an employee assistance programme, so not just as a service provider but as an organisation, as an employer, we're doing a lot as well in terms of being such a baby organisation really. 18 months in, we're already focusing on supporting and developing our workforce as well as the children and young people that we work with.
And that's one of the other sides. So obviously all the activities that you've got actually in the building that young people have access to, you also do the employability workshops as well, to take people on their own journey, and obviously if and when they do actually step away from the youth zone, they're on the right path. Yeah,
and that's again the whole purpose of youth work is not to hold on to young people, not to make them dependent on us. It's the opposite. It's to make them interdependent. It's to empower them to move on and live successful lives. So we can't do that on our own. We have to do that with other voluntary sector partners, with local authority partners, but with our supporters and our patrons as well. So even when I was initially having the conversations with Neil and Michelle about Godel coming on board as a founder patron, of course the financial support we get is critical to allow us to do what we do day to day, our core offer. But what's more important is the pathways that you can create for our young people. So there'll be some children and young people we work with that didn't even know your career, your kind of environment exists. They don't know what tech is. They don't. Do you know what I mean? And when you go in your offices and look at how local and young the workforce is, it's inspiring. But our children and young people from this part of the city would never see that as for them. So what you're doing is opening those doors and creating those pathways and those opportunities for these kids, because they've got all the potential and the aspirations in the world. They just don't have equal opportunity, and that's what the Founder Patron campaign, the other partners we work with, that's the most important thing we can do together. It's not just funding what we do day to day, it's those opportunities and the pathways we can create by working closely together.
I think we've actually got like a young person coming in the next few months to actually do some work experience. I think he's doing like software development.
He did. I bumped into him. I think he had a bit of a tour of the office, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
So looking forward to having someone on board. See how we can help. Because
like you obviously touched on the founder patrons, Godel obviously being one of them. Obviously we're supporting you whenever we can. but what does it mean to get continued support from other founder patrons as well as ourselves?
It means everything to us because, you know, it's around, it generates about 70% of our core funding, the founder patron campaign. We've now gone past the founder stage, so we're still looking for patrons, but obviously founder patronage, that cut-off period's gone now. But the beauty of the patron campaign is that it's unrestricted funding, so when you donate as a patron, as an organisation, you're not saying we want you to deliver 5 employability programs or 6 mental health programs.
Right.
You're committing to supporting our core offer because you believe in what we do, and that unrestricted funding allows us to develop what we know we need to do day in, day out, and then all the targeted extra specialist support provision can spoke off of that. It's so hard to get unrestricted funding these days for any charity, but especially for youth work, because everybody wants to support projects around youth violence or projects around mental health or projects around anti-gang work, or all these targeted short-term funding opportunities are there and they're great, but what's the hardest thing to secure is just universal open access youth work funding, and that is the most important thing because that's what's going to have a real impact over the long term, and I've seen that firsthand. I'm a product of that, so I'm very passionate about that. That's what the patron campaign can bring. But yeah, we're coming to the end of our first cycle of patron commitments now, so we are looking to keep that going, and we're looking for as many supporters and patrons to get on board as we can. And as I said, you know, the aim for me is to become the #1 charity in Manchester. When you think of children and young people, you think of us. That's the aspiration.
Yeah.
That's, you know, in the same way you would think of the Christie or Macmillan or Bernardo's, we want you to think of Hideout Youth Home when you think of Manchester's young people. So that's the aspiration, that's the journey we're on.
That's cool. I guess we can, as patrons and partners of yours, that's where we can come in as well. The network that we've got, and where we obviously support with the different charities, which probably leads us nicely onto the Manchester Run, which I've been roped into.
I think we all have, really.
You didn't know you'd been signed up, did you?
I found out I got out of a meeting and saw my name on a list, and I've never done a run in my
You're
life.
captain, apparently. Captain Ivan.
Captain.
Yeah.
I'll pass it on to Rihanna. She's her training's well far ahead compared to mine.
Yeah.
I am a runner, but I'm not a very good runner, I would just like to say. But yeah, I think when we got put in the message, I was like, a 10k run. Oh, and then, but I was just like, oh, but it's a 10k run. Like, you don't really think about the distance sometimes. You might go for a quick jog, but then obviously like supporting the youth zone doing 10k runs is absolutely brilliant. Why this specific event though? I
think it's an event that everybody in Manchester knows, don't they? And everybody loves it. Last year we featured on BBC, and our gym instructor Jason talked about it, and he said, you know, it's when you think of the Great Manchester Run being a Mancunian, everyone just wants to be part of it. And if you've ever run it, I was saying to you before, one of my it's a party carnival atmosphere all the way around. So even when you're tired and you're struggling, that does carry you around. It's that Manchester spirit. So again, there was nothing more important for us to be part of that event as a new emerging Manchester charity. And it's such a great event as well, and we get support so very kindly. The Great Run through Manchester City Council allocated us a number of spaces for free, which we could then give out to supporters to help us raise funding. So we get a lot of support even through things like that sometimes goes hidden, so it's good to acknowledge that and thank them for that as well. But yeah, it'll be a great day. I'm running it myself, jogging it, walking it.
Walking it.
But looking forward to it. You're lucky you didn't get the half marathon.
My name was on the half, and I demoted myself to 10.
I think when I first emailed Michelle, I got a response within 30 seconds of a list of names, so I was surprised how quickly she spoke to you, or not.
Or not. I guess in terms of the money that's raised through the Manchester Run, then where's that going to go? Is there an idea? I
think that'll allow us to deliver extracurricular activities, so things like residentials to the Lake District, getting young people out of Manchester. We've just become a Duke of Edinburgh licensed centre, so we can now deliver the Bronze Award, the Silver Award and the Gold Award.
Right.
With COVID restrictions. The Bronze Award, you couldn't complete the full Bronze Award because the 4th stage of it, you have to go and do an expedition where you go out on a walk and you get assessed. And obviously at that point you weren't allowed outdoors, so we've got a whole group of young people, about 39 I think, who have completed the Bronze Award without the expedition. So they've got what's called a Certificate of Achievement. Now we want to be able to take them out on an expedition or take them on a residential experience for a weekend. but that's above and beyond our core funding. So things
Yeah.
like the Manchester run and those events might raise 5 or 6 grand. I think the target is 5 grand this year. That will take 2 groups of young people, a junior group, so juniors is 8 to 12s, and a senior group 13 to 19. We'll be able to take 2 groups out of Manchester. For some, it will genuinely be the first time we've been outside of the city.
Crazy, isn't it, to think that?
Yeah, you don't really think about that sometimes.
That can be
do
reality. Yeah. I guess it's good motivation for me then. I have to go for a run tonight. But that's what, I think that's another part of it. Like my experience with charities so far is it's all finance related. It's all donating. Whereas to actually be, yes, we are raising money, but to be part of it and be part of the spirit and the atmosphere and the day and just probably raising awareness more than anything. Yeah. And now knowing actually, that money's going to be targeted to go towards 39 people who've, as you say, may never have been outside of Manchester. Like, it's a cool story, and it's obviously good to be part of it.
Absolutely.
Outside of just the usual, £5 a month
and
donation to
them gain a nationally recognised qualification as well in the Duke of Edinburgh scheme. So.
And like you say, the success stories. Who knows where those 39 might be in the next year, 2-3 years time. Yeah. So it's a good journey to be part of. Yeah.
The last question. Towards the end. Obviously, doing the 10k run. Is there any other events that the Youth Zone are like sponsoring or taking part in for like the rest of the year?
Fundraisers. Not that I can think of off the top of my head. I know patrons are doing their own fundraising events internally. So I know that some organisations doing the Free Peaks Challenge. We're supported by the Theo Paphitis Foundation. He's doing a charity shoot somewhere in a posh village down south somewhere.
Sounds very posh, that.
There's all different events like that throughout the year that people can get involved with. But if anybody has got an idea or a fundraising event, we can support you to raise those funds. So even if it's just a bake sale, you guys were talking about doing something in the offices earlier. If you want any young people to come down and talk about their experiences, it's great me being able to talk about it, but young people talking first hand about their own experiences, and we try to do that as much as possible. So I know a couple of your colleagues come to the patrons dinner last year. We have an annual patrons dinner, which is like a formal sit down dinner. We try and make it as posh and formal as we can within the Youth Zone. But that night is completely led by young people. So the host the MC on the night is a young person. The menu is designed by young people. The table service is young people. The tours and the welcome team. So as much as possible, we try to do not just fundraising events, but events throughout the whole year, which are young people led. Not last week, the week before, we had our first community iftar to celebrate the holy month of Ramadan and the diversity and the ethnic makeup of the local community and the young people we work with. And we do stuff like that at least once a month. There's some sort of celebration or event that celebrates the local community and the makeup of the young people we work with. So any ideas anybody's got, we're open, we're all ears, we're happy to support.
Yeah, that's good. And final thing from our side, describe Youth Zone in 3 words.
3 words. Inspiring, empowering, and Mancunian.
Brilliant. Fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you for coming in, and honestly, thank you for your ongoing support. It genuinely does go such a long way, and we really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. No, thanks for having us in today. It's good to see the site and hopefully see you at the finish line on the 22nd.
I'll buy you a pint. Cheers,
brilliant.
mate.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to our Godel pod. Please subscribe, like, and let us know if you'd like to take part in the next pod, and look out for more.